Oliver Stone é um dos grandes diretores de Hollywood em atividade. O ativismo político, ou o aguçado espírito crítico, aparecem nos temas e figuras que ele filma, com estilo mutante, onde não hesita em experimentar técnicas e estéticas diferentes. As lentes de Oliver Stone já focaram da Guerra Civil em El Salvador à banda de rock The Doors.
Jim.
Dos atentados de 11 de setembro ao assassinato de John Kennedy, entre muitos outros. JFK, de Stone, foi, aliás, um de seus grandes sucessos.
White is black and black is white.
O diretor também teve sua cota de fracassos de bilheteria e crítica, como foi o caso do épico Alexandre. Mas no balanço de 70 anos de vida e quase 5 décadas a serviço do cinema, Oliver Stone tem mais a comemorar do que a lamentar.
Oliver Stone, born on the 4th of July.
Recebeu 3 Oscars. O primeiro como roteirista de O Expresso da Meia-Noite, ainda em 1979.
Thank you for this night.
Vieram mais 2 estatuetas douradas de melhor diretor, com filmes sobre um de seus temas prediletos, a Guerra do Vietnã, Platoon. E nascido em 4 de julho. Como veterano do Vietnã, Stone conhece bem o assunto e é, até hoje, um crítico das ações militares americanas pelo mundo. De passagem por São Paulo para lançar Snowden, Herói ou Traidor, Oliver Stone falou ao Milênio. Mr. Stone, thank you very much for talking to Globo News here in São Paulo. I'd like to start asking you a question that comes from the film itself. Do you think that this film helps you anyhow to undermine, to challenge, or to face what Edward Snowden himself called the architecture of oppression?
The architecture of oppression is a great expression. It's terrifying. The concept that the 1984, the book I read when I was a young man by George Orwell, could come true in my lifetime, and it has, and beyond, because the technology is so sophisticated and so much money is being spent by, especially by the United States. We have satellites that are 22,000 miles in space. We have antennae that are the size of the Eiffel Tower, peeking into every spot on Earth. We want to know everything, data mining the world. Not for terrorism. Terrorism is an excuse to build this stuff to sell the American people, but because you can't catch a terrorist without selected targeting. That works, and it has always worked. This was a nonsense excuse created by the war on terror to scare everybody and get the money to build this stuff. The National Security Agency has never received as much money since 2001 in their lifetime. This is a dream for them. It's a pig out, what they call. It's the equivalent of what the military-industrial complex went through under in the 1950s. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, what was your question? I forgot.
In that sense, do you think that the film can help to undermine or to challenge this architecture of oppression?
The films don't. I really perhaps am too cynical, but I've made many films that were powerful, and they're respected by many people, and they're seen in their lifetime, but people forget. I think that the media, the government has the power of media, corporate media. Like in 1984, they can repeat. The movie comes, goes, 3 weeks later, you're watching the news, and the news says fear, terrorism, 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 fear, security, budget, money. It all is, people respond to that Pavlovian signal, and I think that in all societies, in France also, in England especially, it's the nature of the way things are going in the world. There is, let's say the Americans in a large overall sense would say that this is not just a war on terror, this is a new world order. That was the expression that George Bush father gave it way back when, but new world order sounds about right. Economically, culturally, one language, ideally, where people can be regimented. An algorithm would be created for a new world order, and everyone would adhere to it.
We have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Same respect for law, same kind of enforcement, and I think pre-crime will become popular. Pre-crime intention. We'll go to every extreme of science fiction to solve the the issue of breaking the law and being a criminal.
And, from your point of view, what do you think is the role of the citizen to try and understand and maybe to question and to argue what's going on and to react to it? Is there a way out or not?
As long as we stay human, there will be resistance. As long as we stay human, there will be resistance. I think that artificial intelligence, robots, that will certainly take us in that direction. There will be more robot jobs, less jobs for people, and that we can take that in a good direction or in a bad one. And I think, unfortunately, because of the nature of mankind, we have this desire, especially in America, for aggression. And you see, what total control does when you do data mining on this order around the world, you are looking for regime change in countries that don't go along with your plan.
You ready for a little action?
Oh, this looks juicy. How is this all possible? Think of it as a Google search, except instead of searching only what people make public, we're also looking at everything they don't. Emails, chats, SMS, whatever. Yeah, but which people? The whole kingdom, Snow White.
The NSA is really tracking every cell phone in the world.
Most Americans don't want freedom. They want security.
Except people, they don't even know they've made that bargain.
Are they watching us?
We're talking about regime change in Ukraine, which happened a few years ago. We're talking about Iraq and Libya and Syria, which is a big deal and very dangerous. But America, I don't know. I think they're trying to create a new world order, and the best thing to do is just to bulldoze everything. It doesn't matter how many lives are lost, how many people are killed. Blame it on the other guy.
Oliver Stone ficou apreensivo com a vitória de Donald Trump nas eleições americanas, mas já estava desconfortável com os rumos do Partido Democrata.
Good afternoon.
Ainda durante a campanha e com a polêmica dos e-mails de Hillary, disse que a mulher de Bill Clinton o assustava. Mas rejeita a ideia de que a Rússia tenha influenciado de alguma forma a eleição.
Russia and the United States have been hacking each other and gathering intelligence for years. This is the Russian intelligence operation certainly would want to have information on the candidates' views, what they're going to do. This is the nature of intelligence. You know what the next leader is going to do. You want to know his policies. But to say that the Russians could influence the United States elections is an insane accusation that can only be created out of a sense of hysteria, Cold War McCarthyism. I think Putin, in his comments, said it really the best. He said, do you really think the United States is a banana republic? Which is really what we're doing to ourselves. We're turning ourselves into a fragile country that is very defensive about ourselves, very shamed by, I think, this election. I think this is a shameful election because it's been nothing but verbiage and insults as opposed to issues. I mean, they haven't even talked about Mr. Snowden. They haven't mentioned the surveillance state. They haven't mentioned climate control, the American wars that we're in.
Weren't mentioned. There were lots of attacks from side to side.
So this is all about personality.
Mr. Stone.
But you asked about the FBI. So
Yes.
the FBI, as far as I know, it changes a lot. But these accusations did not come from the FBI. They came from the Clinton camp at the Democratic National Committee and so forth. And it was based on calling WikiLeaks a puppet for the Russians as well as Mr. Trump. These are outrageous accusations, and they're just not true. If you think about the big overall picture, you'd really have to be a Russia hater, which I think many people in the United States have become, to go that far.
Mr. Stone, you've been labeled, sometimes I read about it, a master of controversial subjects, or plainly a leftist filmmaker or director. Does this sort of label bother you anyhow? And what do you think that you make differently from other mainstream directors that led people to call you this sort of thing?
Did you like my film? Did you see Snowden?
Yes.
It's a powerful film.
It's a powerful film. It's a very informative
it's
film.
about a state of mind the country
yes.
is in. And I told his story from the way he told it to us. In other words, this is his version of events. I can't claim that it's the final truth. There may be something else, but truly he's the only one who's historically come out of the blue and basically presented evidence of this total eavesdropping surveillance state, including cyber warfare, including drone warfare. This is very dangerous, what he's shown us. I think in 2013, I don't think the message of that message got across. I think people focused on him because you kill the messenger, you kill the message. But he hasn't cracked. He's consistent. He's been saying the same thing since 2013. He believes in reform. He believes we've gone too far. He believes in targeted surveillance of terrorism. All the things that are right. And many people agree with him, but on this issue, it's been lost. Yeah. Back to your question, which was a leftist filmmaker. Yeah. I always have considered myself a dramatist, and I jump into a story. I tell the story from that person's point of view. Same with Snowden. It's his story. So it's not my characters have been much more volatile, perhaps, and more action-oriented. He's more of a desk clerk type, and he's passive in some ways, and have been
very methodic and organized.
So I told the movie methodically the way he lived his life.
We are running out of time.
They're going to come for me.
I also did a movie on Richard Nixon. I did a movie on George Bush. These people are anathema to the way I think. They're not. They were, but I told it well in the sense of being an interesting story.
Where man doesn't cry, I don't cry. To fight. When they look at you, they see what they want to be. They look at me, see what they are.
You know the day destroys the night.
I'm doing a movie on Jim Morrison, who was insanely on the other side. So, I mean, I'm all over the place. I started my life as a conservative. My father was very conservative, and I grew up that way. And then as I went through life, I became more progressive, I think.
You ever tried drinking blood?
In other words, it doesn't matter if I do a story about Genghis Khan or Mao, or Castro. I just tell the story from there. I go into different people.
I do not know what we have for here because I do not smoke anymore. I have not smoked for
I can tell it's an old box.
17 years. Dice que se da cuenta que es una cajita vieja. Oh, candies.
They're not wonderful.
It's a good thing.
I think I see a pistol.
Ese era el puesto de comando de la rebelión. Yo vengo de allá.
Stone sempre teve um fascínio pela América Latina e por figuras de poder. Fez alguns documentários que passaram despercebidos pelo grande público, mas reforçam essa faceta da carreira do diretor. Esteve na Venezuela filmando Mi Amigo Hugo, sobre Hugo Chávez.
Hello, I'm Oliver Stone, and I invite you to watch Mi Amigo Hugo.
E também passou por Cuba, onde filmou Comandante, um documentário onde tenta explicar uma das figuras mais emblemáticas e controversas do século XX, Fidel Castro. What's your thing with Latin America and how do you view the region today?
It's because it's dramatic. I think Salvador is a great story because I met a journalist who'd been down there during the Civil War, Richard Boyle, who just died, unfortunately. And Boyle took me on a journey to the four Central American republics And what I saw with him was astounding and very, because I'd been in Vietnam, I said, this is like, for me, I was old enough to understand now this Vietnam complex. And I was seeing the American soldiers, you know, I was seeing the Contras, I was seeing the death squads, and I was seeing this.
The assassination of Monsignor.
Oh, that was horrible.
The cardinal there.
The same thing was happening that happened in Vietnam. And America is unfortunately behind, always on the wrong side with the wrong guys. So that led me to really, in Salvador, I wasn't sure I was going to work again because it was done very cheap on the fly. And I said everything I had to say. I said, I don't care if it's expositional. Jimmy Woods is going to give a speech. He gave a speech, and it's a beautiful speech. And if I died tomorrow, I stick by Salvador. It was about the people, the labor, the people who work, the people who farm, the people who are decent people who need to be treated justly in a society. That's what's been lost, and you see a lot of that inequality in Latin America, a lot of it. Huge peasant, poor people beyond belief, and soldier class that enforces the authority of the oligarchs. You see it in every country, and I think perhaps the differences are so extreme in Latin America, that's what interested me. But I'm beginning to see them now in America, you see. So maybe my next film might be well about coming home to this country, my country. And Snowden is part of that. That was a film about this country.
You also, another subject that you go over and over, and you made some films about it, is Vietnam. You've been there as a soldier, you've done some films about it. What do you think it tells us, the Vietnam War and the role of the States in it? What do you think it tells us from American society and the way the States sees the world?
It was people are unfortunately dying out, and not too many people remember, as well as those of us who served in Vietnam, but that was a debacle. It was a soul-destroying war. It went on for almost 8 years, and it was the worst. We bombed, genocided the Vietnamese. We killed so many Laotians, and Cambodia was upset completely by our bombing and led to the Khmer Rouge. It was a 3.8, according to McNamara, 3.6 to 3.8 million Vietnamese were killed in that war. I mean, you think about 6 million Jews in World War II or 10 million Russians. 3.6 to 3.8 of a small country. They died. And we can say it was their fault, the communists, this and that, but we were not fighting communism. We were fighting reform.
I don't know, brothers, but I'm hurting real bad inside.
Death? What you all know about death?
Everybody gotta die sometime.
All you got to do is make it out of here.
The South Vietnamese government was an artificial construct of the United States, much like we do in many countries. We create governments that suit us, and they don't really work, and we spend a fortune propping it up, like the Afghanistan government or the Iraq government. Well, Iraq's a different story, but we're trying the same thing in Syria. You know, we believe in regime change so that people will come our way and think like we think, but it doesn't work. Life is so varied. Allow life to be varied. Allow different cultures to exist. Anybody who wants to make one culture out of the world is a tyrant, and that's where we are. We're heading in that direction.
You just mentioned Nixon. Nixon is one of these films that have had good reviews sometimes, but wasn't a huge box office success. The same happened with Alexander and some other of your films. What's the role of failure in your life? I know that you are very much awarded, the 3 times Oscar winner and lots of nominations and everything, but what's the role and the importance of failure also in your career and your life? What did you learn from this?
I think you learn more from failure than success sometimes. You need success because it helps you to believe in yourself. Otherwise, if you had constant failure, you'd become very down on yourself. But I think failure teaches you. It makes you humble. It keeps you humble. And I've had my share of failures, as you know. I think you make good movies anyway, and you let the chips fall where they may. You feel better about yourself. If I were to make a highly commercial success, but it had no value, nothing to remember, I don't think I'd feel good about it.
Conquer your fear, and I
promise you'll conquer death!
The gods have a way of punishing such pride.
No man or woman can be too powerful or too beautiful without disaster befalling.
He never lusted for war, Alexander, or enjoyed it so. How dare you! Alexander, be reasonable!
You once said that JFK was your best movie so far at the time.
No.
You never said. I read
Never
that
said that.
somewhere.
Everybody asked me, what's your favorite?
Yes.
I never said
You
it.
don't have a favorite movie.
No, each one was painful to make.
It was painful
and each
to
one
make.
had a different life, a different destiny.
If they can kill the president, they can certainly get me.
You're a mouse fighting a gorilla.
You're close. You're closer than you think.
There's going to be an attempt to kill you somewhere between here and New Orleans.
I say let justice be done or the heavens fall.
And what are you thinking of doing later on? Are you tired of film industry? Are you tired of making films, or do you think that you are still curious to make other stories and to look into other characters and stuff?
Yeah, no, I am still curious, but I do think the business is exhausting, and the theater business as such in the United States is dying. So everything is migrating to television and other devices. So it's a big change now. It's like the sound business coming into the film in the 1930s. So you have to ride the wave as much as you can. That's the nature of life, change. I hope I can contribute to the culture. If the culture is still interested in listening. Snowden is not successful box office-wise in the United States, but it had mixed reviews, very tough reviews. In Europe, to the contrary, we've had great reviews across the board because I think more understanding of Snowden, and we're doing better box office.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stone.